After his forced repatriation from China, Mr. Kim Song-ju was the first brought to the State Security Department Interrogation Center in Musan, where he was kept in an underground prison that appeared to him like a cave. Such underground cells are a common feature of the State Security Department interrogation centers. Subsequently, Mr. Kim was transferred for further interrogation to another interrogation detention center in Musan. Mr. Kim explained later that he had to crawl his hands and knees into the cell that he shared with 40 other prisoners, because the entrance door was only about 80 centimeters high. The guards told him that when you get to this prison, you are not human. You are just like animals, and as soon as you get to this prison, you have to crawl just like animals. Mr. Zhang Kwang-il was detained in an underground interrogation facility operated by the State Security Department in Horyang. He was held there on suspicion of being a spy on the Republic of Korea because Mr. Zhang had engaged in trading with Republic of Korea citizens. During the 10 months he spent in detention, Mr. Zhang was given so little food that his weight dropped from 165 pounds to 80 pounds. In order to make him confess, Mr. Zhang was beaten with clubs while hanging upside down. Like numerous other witnesses, Mr. Zhang was also subjected to this so-called pigeon torture. He said, "Your hands are handcuffed behind your back, and then they hang you so you would not be able to stand or sit." On repeated occasion, Mr. Zhang had to spend a full 3 days at a time in the pigeon torture stress position, enduring excruciating pain. He said, "There are no people watching you. There is nobody. And you can't stand, you can't sleep. If you are hung like that for 3 days, 4 days, you urinate, you defecate, and you are totally dehydrated." The pigeon torture was the most painful of all tortures. It was so painful that I felt like it was better to die. Mr. Zhang informed a State Security Department Prosecution Bureau official that he had been tortured until he provided a false confession, but this was to no avail. He said, "I thought the prosecutor was going to help me, but the prosecutor left and then the investigator came back and started hitting me, started assaulting me, and hanging me upside down. The next day the prosecutor came back and said, 'Can you talk honestly?' And I said, 'Yes, I'm a spy.' I confessed." Mr. Kim Yun-chol was detained and interrogated for 6 months at the State Security Department interrogation facility in Musan because he had been illegally in Russia and during that time tried to apply for political asylum. A confession, on the basis of which he was sent to the political prison camp, was extracted by hitting him with wooden bars. Mr. Kim continues to suffer from the serious injuries sustained to his head and body. He said, "It's been 10 years, but I still have scars. And my teeth since I came to South Korea. The South Korean government has given me artificial teeth, but at the time, my teeth were not there. And if you look at my ear, it's been 10 years and my ear still hurts. And on my head, because I was hurt with wooden clubs, and so I have scars, I think I have about 10 scars in all on the head." A woman who did not state her name claimed that she was interrogated for 10 days by the State Security Department in an interrogation detention facility in North Hamgyong province. Her interrogations were accompanied by systematic beatings. She said, "They basically beat you to near death. If my answer did not satisfy the official interrogator, then he made me kneel down on the concrete floor and started beating me. When inmates were not being interrogated, they had to kneel motionless and without speaking in their cell. If someone was caught talking, the entire cell had to perform 1,000 squats. Many people fainted during this exercise. On one occasion, the unnamed woman noticed that a fellow inmate was lying in the cell without moving. When she brought this to the attention of the guards, they punished her by stomping on her and hitting her with a stick until her head started bleeding. In addition, the entire group of people in her cell were punished by being deprived of food for 3 days. Mr. Kim Kwang-il described how the police officers interrogating him had propped him up in the pigeon torture position. In this exposed position, his chest was beaten until he vomited blood. In addition, he was subjected to the motorcycle torture and plane torture, where he was forced to assume extremely painful stress positions involving the prolonged extension of his arms until he collapsed. When they were not being interrogated, prisoners had to stay the entire day in their cell in kneeling position, with their head to the ground. Prisoners who moved were beaten. Eventually, Mr. Kim falsely confessed to the crimes for which the police wanted to indict him. At the Interrogation Detention Center of the MPS in Musan, Mr. Kim Song-ju witnessed how a cellmate was punished for having spoken without authorization. The guard ordered him to stick his hand through the narrow gap between cell bars. The guard then beat the prisoner's hand about 30 times, using a metal gun cleaning tool swung with full force. He said, "Seeing this prisoner's hand, I was shocked," and elaborated. He had a lump as a result of the hitting with this device that was as thick as his own hand. The guard told the prisoner to return to the cell, but the prisoner could not retrieve his swollen hand through the narrow bars, and the prisoner just squatted down and continued crying. He couldn't do anything else. Miss Kim Hee-suk was only 13 years old when State Security Department agents arrested her as she returned from school. She was taken to political prison camp number 18, where her entire family was already incarcerated. No charges were ever presented against any family members. Inmates were warned that they would be executed if they inquired about the reason for their arrest or talked with other inmates about it. When her father one day challenged the guards about why he was kept at the camp, he was taken away and the family never saw him again. During 28 years of incarceration, Miss Kim never found out why she had to endure such a long time of starvation and forced labor. She even started blaming her parents. In 2001, as political prison camp number 18 was downsizing, she was released. From a relative, she found out that the family had been punished because her grandfather had fled to the Republic of Korea during the Korean War. Mr. Kang Chol-hwan's paternal grandparents moved from Japan to North Korea in the 1960s to help build the country. In 1977, his grandfather suddenly disappeared. Soon after, Mr. Kang, then only 9 years old, was arrested and taken, without indictment or trial, to political prison camp number 15. Only his mother was spared because she accepted a forced divorce from Mr. Kang's father. After having survived 10 years of starvation and forced labor in the camp, he was released without any explanation. Mr. Kang described that an entire section at political prison camp number 15 was occupied by ethnic Koreans from Japan who had been detained, apparently because they knew too much about capitalist culture. An unnamed witness was sent to political prison camp number 18 whilst pregnant. Towards the end of her pregnancy, she was kicked by a guard, triggering premature labor. When the child was born, guards beat her until they could pull away the crying baby from her. She lost consciousness because of the ordeal. When she woke up, she found her baby dead. The body was gathered with other corpses in a storeroom until enough corpses had been accumulated to merit throwing them into a single grave site. Still in pain and bleeding, the witness was forced to work the next day and beaten because she could not keep up with her work quota. Mr. Ahn testified that some of the guards played sadistic and sexually abusive games with the hungry prisoners. On one occasion, a State Security Department agent at political prison camp number 22 sat on a chair and used a fishing rod, baited with pork fat, to entice a nude female prisoner to crawl like a dog and jump after the meat. The State Security Department officer took obvious pleasure in this game, pulling up the fishing rod just high enough to keep the prisoner from catching the meat and lowering it to give her another chance.